Hello. Let's see. Hey, Naga, Rainey, Ian, and Frankie. And y'all don't have to think I'm ignoring Scott. We've already had a conversation. We are live on YouTube, by the way.
Hello, everybody.
I think the only Yeah. Do you want to talk about that, or you? No, okay. So I think the only announcement I have is to remind folks, if you don't already know, we have an incredible opportunity. Geshe Sangpo came back from India, where he'd been for a few months, and with him traveled back 2 other monks from Sergei Monastery. And so Geshe Sangpo and the 2 other monks, Geshe Pema and Venerable Tenzin, who will be a Geshe in November, will be constructing 3 different mandalas while they're here. So the very first one is coming up starting on Thursday of this week. And so it will take them 3 days to complete the mandalas. And so they'll do work all day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The center will be open from 10 until 4, and you can drop by any time during that time from 10 to 4 and watch them create the mandala. This first one is a healing mandala, or a medicine Buddha. Medicine Buddha's there on that big tanka. He's the blue Buddha, and is a healing Buddha, and lots of other other characteristics, whatever I'm trying to say as well. And then what's really exciting is we will end, the whole mandala will culminate in a big Medicine Buddha puja on Sunday morning. And so we'll open the center at 10. And this part of it will be available on Zoom and YouTube as well. Only Sunday. So if you're local, I encourage you to come on by the center in person. But if you need to join on Zoom, we will be making that available on Zoom on Sunday. Starting at 10, folks can come in and circumambulate the mandala. You can take pictures of it. You can meditate for a little while. You can just view it. And then at 10:30, the monks will arrive, all four, including Geshe Gallic, and the Medicine Buddha Puja will start then, and then the closing ceremony. So that'll take place, again, this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So hopefully you all can join us. The second one is Green Tara, or a mandala of peace and prosperity, and that'll take place the second weekend of March. The third one we're offering offsite at a nearby church. It's Community United Church of Christ, and it's right here in Raleigh. All the details are online, but if you do have questions, just flag me or Donna down. We'll be happy to answer them. All right, I think that's it. Robbie.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting. So welcome. This is our fourth of 5 sessions in the module Taking Refuge in the Three Jewels. So let's begin with our prayers in the Gold Prayer Book. Page 34. So first prayer is the Medicine Buddha stanza, and that's the what the mandala, the first mandala, will be involved with, and they'll certainly be involved in the puja on Sunday. We're not going to read that tonight, but you may want to look at that to get familiar with that if you're interested in being part of that. So we'll start with taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, 3 times in English. The first 2 lines being taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, or the Supreme Assembly, as it's phrased here, which is the subject of this module. And the second 2 lines are generating bodhicitta, the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, not just for our personal freedom from suffering, but for all sentient beings. And that's the subject of some of the other modules in Discovering Buddhism. So we'll read that 3 times, then we'll read the 4 immeasurables. We'll pause after each line. These are immeasurably vast and expansive wishes in that they include all sentient beings, not just ourselves, not just our family and friends and the people we like, but we're wishing happiness and love for all sentient beings, those we don't like and those we don't even know. So that's why they're referred to as immeasurable, without boundaries. Okay. Taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Okay, now we'll begin our first meditation of the evening. Start by checking your posture. Your back is a little bit straighter than you normally sit, but not rigid or tight. Your head is maybe just a couple degrees in front of the vertical, but your entire spine from your top of your head down to the base of your buttocks is a little bit extended, a little bit stretched out. Eyes are either just very slightly open, so a little bit of light comes in, or just lightly closed. Mouth is lightly closed, not clenched. The tongue is on the hard palate behind the upper teeth. Our shoulders are down, not up around our neck, but relaxed and down and a little bit back, so our chest is open. Our upper arms are away from the sides of our chest. And we traditionally place our right hand in our left hand, with our thumbs touching slightly below the level of our navel, signifying the union of wisdom and compassion that is enlightenment. If we're sitting on a cushion, we're towards the front third of the cushion, not towards the back, but towards the front, so our pelvis is tilted forward and our legs are in a position that we find stable and comfortable. If we're sitting in a chair, our feet are flat on the floor or resting on a cushion if that's more comfortable. So take a moment and just scan your body. Identify any sources of tension or discomfort now and address those. Wiggle around if you need to, so that when we begin the actual meditation, the posture is not a continuing distraction, but it's really quite centered and solid and maintains itself. You could not have to think about it. And now we'll begin by just taking 3 deep breaths from the abdomen, the stomach expanding slowly on the in-breath, and contracting slowly towards our spine on the out-breath. And just do that 3 times. And now we allow our breathing to return to its normal pattern. And as always, we begin our meditation by setting our motivation, our intention. And even if it doesn't seem to come naturally, let's just think about the bodhicitta motivation, the wish to become enlightened, the wish to completely develop my capacity for wisdom and for compassion, not just for my own benefit, but so that I can be of benefit to all sentient beings, all beings with consciousness. And even if that doesn't seem natural, just think along those lines for a moment. And now we'll begin our meditation, which is just a simple concentration meditation, placing the mind on a chosen object and just leaving it there. And when the mind wanders off, always come back to it. And the object is the physical sensation, the tactile sensation of the breath moving in and out through our nostrils. And we choose that because it's always present, and for most of us, it's a fairly neutral object. So we just place mind, awareness, concentration on the breath. We're not visualizing it. We're not describing it to ourselves. Just direct perception. Mind, breath. So that there is no separation between the two. No division, no duality. We can say that the mind, when concentrated on the breath, has the same qualities as the breath. In a way, we could almost say the mind becomes the breath becomes the mind. Nothing more, nothing less than that. And every time our mind wanders off, as it inevitably will, we just set the other distraction aside and come back to the breath. And we'll just do that for the next 7 or 8 minutes. We can end our meditation with a dedication. We acknowledge that just by sitting like this, developing our ability to concentrate, we've made a positive imprint on our mind stream. And we think that may that positive imprint not be dissipated or lost, but may it ripen in the future in a way that benefits all sentient beings. Okay. Seems like we have some serious meditators here. I got the feeling everybody would have gone for another 20 or 30 minutes if we'd had the time. So far in this class, we've talked a little bit about refuge and the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what the three jewels are, and what some of their qualities are that make them a valid object of refuge. Tonight, I wanted to talk about the actual refuge ceremony. Up to now, we've been talking about this mental process of going for refuge, which we do over and over again until it's become what we refer to as a realization, where it's just part of the way of what our mind is. It's just completely internalized, so that when things are going bad, we instinctively go for refuge. When things are going well, we go for refuge. When we're bored, we go for refuge. So it's a part of the continual conversation in our mind, or way of thinking, or way of living our life. That's, you hear people talk about realizations, which are very great achievements. First, we have to kind of work at them, and it's like learning to play the piano or something. But there's also the actual refuge ceremony, which is offered on an irregular basis at Kadampa Center. I don't know if we have any plans for a refuge ceremony.
No,
It's
not,
kind of when there's a need for it. And I didn't talk about this with Linda, but if you're ever at the point where you say you want to take refuge, just let her know so she gets an idea that there are people who are interested. Typically, we wouldn't put this ceremony on for 1 or 2 people, but when they're 10 or so, we'll have a refuge ceremony. And you take refuge with a qualified teacher. It doesn't have to be Geshe Geluk, though it can be. He offers refuge occasionally. Some of the other visiting teachers, such as Venerable Rabina and the other Kensur Rinpoche, when they come, have offered refuge. So it doesn't have to be someone that you spend a lot of time with necessarily. It doesn't mean that your refuge guru is going to be your main guru either. It's just someone that you know something about, okay? You need to investigate them a little bit, and you see them as representing at least some of the qualities that you see in the three jewels, in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So it is important to check them out either through personal experience or through reading things they've written or talking to their other students, because when you go through the refuge ceremony, you're creating a strong karmic connection with that teacher. So it's not something where you just choose someone at random. And there are, as in every tradition, there are stories of teachers going off the path or becoming somewhat eccentric or choosing to follow a path that seems somewhat contradictory to what we've learned, but that doesn't destroy the karmic connection that you have with that person, okay? So it can be a very tricky situation. I mean, you don't need to, stew about it, but you should look at them and have some confidence that they embody the lineage. Because for someone to give the refuge vows, which is what we're talking about here, they have received the instruction from their teacher, and they've received that teacher's received it from their teacher, and it goes all the way back to the historical figure of the Buddha in an unbroken lineage. Okay, so not to be entered into lightly, but it's just an acknowledgement to yourself that You've looked at this path. There's certainly things, you don't have to accept it hook, line, and sinker. You could still have questions about various aspects of the teacher, but you say, this is a path that makes sense to me, and this is what the path I've chosen, and this is a formal way of saying I'm entering into this path. Okay, so that's the whole point of the refuge ceremony. It's there's nothing really mystical about it. It's quite simple. Taking refuge, participating in the refuge ceremony is something you do one time. It's a one and done, okay? You can't take refuge, you can't go through the ceremony multiple times. If you've taken refuge, you're certainly, frequently we welcome people who are not participating to sit in the room and kind of mentally renew that commitment. But the refuge ceremony itself is something you actually only do one time. And at that ceremony, you're given an honorific Tibetan name that rarely comes up in the future, okay? A lot of people forget what it is, okay? But the Lama who's giving the ceremony chooses them out in advance and gives you a Tibetan name. The ceremony is quite short. It really hardly ever lasts more than half an hour. It doesn't come with a great deal of commitments or anything like that. But it does start out with, it's always given with what are referred to as the 5 lay precepts. So this is typically the first part of the refuge ceremony. 5 lay means non-monastic. For those of us who don't have the karma to be monks or nuns, 5 lay precepts, and you take these precepts for the rest of your life. Anybody know what they are? No killing. Hold on, I can't write that fast. No stealing. Let's see, oh, I left out lying. Yeah, lying's in there next, excuse me. Killing, well, they come in different orders. Yeah, I'll just go stealing. No lying. No sexual misconduct. What's the last one? No intoxicants. Okay, so you are vowing to avoid these actions for the rest of your life after taking these precepts. Stealing, or no killing, taking life, okay. No stealing, taking what's not freely offered. No lying, pretty straightforward. Sexual misconduct, there are lots of different definitions of that. Some of them are quite graphic about what can go in what orifice and things like that. But generally it's taken to mean no sexual conduct that hurts others, either physically or emotionally. So it would include things like having sex with someone else's partner, things like that. And no intoxicants. Pretty straightforward. So some questions come up right away. The first one is asked, do I have to take all of the precepts to participate in the refuge ceremony? And every time I have either been in it and or sat in, the answer is always no. You do not have to take all the precepts. Okay, so a lot of people leave out intoxicants because they like to have a glass of wine or everything, so they commit to the other 4. Okay, so that's the first question. This is one list you are allowed to pick and choose from. Most of them you aren't. Okay. Then the other thing that comes up, it's impossible to keep these. Okay. Yeah, of course. You take them with the understanding that you will break these precepts, and you will break them a lot, okay? But it said it creates tremendous karma just to take them, even if you know you're not going to be able to keep them perfectly for the rest of this life, okay? So that's why, people like to sit in on the ceremony. They kind of renew it. They say, okay, I haven't been that great at avoiding lying. I've done a lot of lying since I last, but I can renew that. I can acknowledge that and move on, okay? So this is not some sort of pass-fail test that you're taking. It's something that you aspire to. And by taking the precepts, that puts it in your mind, okay? See, these are basically about actions that hurt others. So it said that when we're on the spiritual path, the first thing we can't be a Buddha, but at least we can stop hurting others because it hurts them, and it's also creating the cause for our own suffering in the future. Or as Venerable Rabina sums it up, zip your lips and keep your hands to yourself, okay? So we take these fully aware that we're not going to be able to keep them perfectly or even close to perfectly. But that's no reason not to take them. If you aspire to live this kind of life, the precepts are said to be very valuable and very helpful. Okay, it's not like we're fencing ourselves in with a lot of can't do's, but it's developing this quality of not hurting others that I think we all aspire to. Any questions or comments? Okay, so this is the first part of the refuge ceremony, the 5 precepts. Yes, Linda.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
What if you go through refuge ceremony and let's say you don't take the lay precept about no intoxicants. And then, a few years go by and you're like, I think I'm ready to take that. Can you then participate in another refuge ceremony and then take that vow?
I think you could just mentally take it on your own.
Okay.
I think, don't quote me on that, but I think you could just add that to the list, okay? Once you've been through the ceremony, you can kind of retake the precepts, and so you could retake it with that included, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, once you get the precepts from a qualified teacher, then after that, you can take them again every morning. Say, I'm going 24 hours, I'm going to really try hard to stick to the precepts, okay? Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I wanted to, that's the first part that's always included in the refuge ceremony, as far as I know. I've never heard of it not being included, so that's going to be part of it. I just wanted to use that to diverge for a moment, just so people are familiar with the terms we talk about different types of vows in Tibetan Buddhism.
We have a question on Zoom.
Okay.
You want to take it now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sean or Jeremy, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. So, Robbie, you might be about to answer this, but this connects back to the last section about karma. But are these vows called pratimoksha vows, or are those different? Is that the same?
Yeah, these are the pratimoksha vows, yeah. That's another term for it, yeah.
Okay, the reason I ask is because in the last section, they talked about how to restore vows with the Vajrasattva meditation, recitation, and going through that practice. So if you take vows, I guess my question is, and then you break one, that seemed like a way to restore or to kind of, work with
if you've taken a vow or a precept and you acknowledge, you're aware that you've broken it, you can restore it. The simplest way is just saying, okay, I'm going to try harder. Or you could do some purification through Vajrasattva practice. There are lots of different ways of restoring what we've broken vows, okay?
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay. So when we talk about, there are 3, aside from the lay precepts, There are three main levels of vows that we talk about in the Tibetan tradition, okay? First is the Vinaya. That's the vows of the monks that the monks and nuns take. And they take hundreds of vows when they go through this ceremony of taking robes and becoming a monastic. They're somewhat different for the monks and nuns. They're not identical, and you don't get to read them before you take them. Okay, you have to go in on the assumption that your teacher who's guiding you through this knows that these are appropriate for you. You don't get to study up on them, and those you definitely don't get to pick and choose. You're taking all several hundred vows if you go through that. So all our robed Sangha here have taken the Vinaya vows. Next type is what we call the Bodhisattva vows. And the Pratimoksha, the lay vows, are basically about avoiding those actions that hurt others, but primarily will cause suffering for ourselves because we're creating negative karma, okay? The Bodhisattva vows, they're primary and secondary. There are quite a number of them. It's less than 50, though. The Bodhisattva vows are basically about helping others, okay? And they're about some of them are quite strange about not destroying cities and things like that. But the basic theme is when you have an opportunity to help, you are obliged to act on it. Okay, you're obliged to act like a bodhisattva. And these you can read, they're printed in all sorts of books, they're quite open. You can read them, you can study them. And these you take over and over and over again. You know, this is not a one and done. They're always included, if you take a tantric initiation, which is permission to do a very complicated meditative practice with a high lama, they always give the bodhisattva vows as part of the initiation. You may not even realize it. Sometimes it's going to all be in Tibetan, and it's going to go by very fast. But if you participate in a tantric initiation, for which you have to have taken refuge, and refuge may not be included in that, but you will have to take the bodhisattva vows with that lama to participate in the tantric initiation. We have Venerable Ling Rinpoche coming May 8th, I believe. It's a 8th, Wednesday. Yeah. And he's offering
Medicine Buddha Empowerment.
Yeah, so that's a tantric initiation. And there'll be bodhisattva vows included in that if you haven't taken them before. We have a question in the back.
Are we able to do the tantric initiation if we haven't taken the done the refuge ceremony?
It's an empowerment, so I think you'll have to have taken refuge. So maybe if there are a number of people who want to take refuge before that, we can arrange for a refuge ceremony. You can certainly sit in, but you're not officially taking the empowerment if you haven't taken refuge.
When Khensa Rinpoche was here, he allowed his students to, instead of taking the full initiation or empowerment, those two words are kind of interchangeable, he allowed us to take the tantric initiation as like a blessing. And we're not sure if Ling Rinpoche will be doing that or not.
This is all.
We're still in the process of getting those details.
They all do it differently, okay? It's very flexible. For people who don't know, Ling Rinpoche is the recognized reincarnation of the main teacher of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, okay? And he is one of the highest Tibetan lamas that we have. So if you have any time to, he's not going to be here long, but it's
Yeah.
going to be
Just
very
one
special.
day, and
It's a
part
big
of it-
deal to have him here. Yeah.
Part of it will be during the day. He'll teach on foundation of all good qualities, and then the empowerment is likely to be in the evening. So I'm not totally sure if that's the way it's going to play out. But yeah, so if you can mark your calendars for May 8th, and take work off if you work.
Okay. So those are the Bodhisattva vows. You can study them, you can talk about them, and you can take the vows many times, either as part, and they're offered outside of tantric initiations also, but they're always included in that. And the last type is the tantric vows, and they're different for each empowerment or each initiation. You're not allowed to, you don't know what they are, you're not allowed to study them, you can't talk about them, but you take them each time you take a tantric initiation. It's about your relationship with the practice, and it's also about establishing a very strong karmic relationship with everyone else who has taken the initiation with you. It says your tantric brothers and sisters when you're taking that together. So I just wanted to bring that in, these 3 levels of vows. And the vows are not intended to restrict us or prevent us. They're not rules about things not to do, really, but they're really ways to help us developing those qualities we aspire to. Okay? Back to the refuge ceremony. So you'll have taken the lay precepts, or the pratimoksha vows, as they're sometimes called. There's a slight difference, but it's easiest to think of them as the same. There's also, of course, there's also the 8 lay precepts, which is something includes things about not wearing jewelry, not listening to music, and those are typically vows that you would take for 24 hours. Okay, that technically is what we're talking about when we talk about the pratimoksha vows, or really the 8 vows, but we also use pratimoksha to refer to the 5 lay precepts. So you've taken those anywhere from, I think you'd have to take at least one. I don't think you can sit there and not take any of them, but you're generally allowed to pick and choose. I'm sure there's some lamas who would say you're not, but most will be. You're sitting in the room here or wherever with someone who you see as embodying at least some of the qualities of the 3 jewels. You probably don't know them that well, but they seem to be someone who would be a valid guide on this path. You've made the commitment, and the actual refuge ceremony is quite short. It's really about 15 minutes, and you typically do it, you're given your name, and you do it on one knee, and you read through these verses. Do we have copies of it anywhere?
No, the little book is out of print, but if you go through the refuge ceremony here at the center, you'll be given.
Yeah, there's nothing secret about it, okay? And you just recite certain things after the guru says, and then typically he'll say something like you should go for refuge 3 times a day for the rest of your life, or 4 times a day, give you a commitment like that. That's very simple, but it's also very easy to break even something that simple. And then the ceremony's over, and that's it. And there's nothing mystical about it. And then we send out an email to your parents and your coworkers and tell them what you've done. And that's it, okay?
And actually, the booklet is available as an e-booklet, like an online booklet on the FPMT website.
Okay, yeah.
So you can check it out.
So if that's something you're considering, yeah, you can look at that. And there's really nothing more to the ceremony than that. It doesn't change you. You're the same person when you walk out, but you've made a commitment, okay? And a somewhat public acknowledgement of that commitment. And it said that's it. Okay. Any questions or comments?
There's a question from a student on Zoom who asked if you could elaborate a bit more on the vow associated with killing and how that relates to insects.
Killing means taking the life of any sentient beings, and insects would be included. So I think this is a vow that some of us, or just about everyone, can assume that they'll break at some point. Just by driving to the center, you're killing insects, okay? But as much as possible, you make an effort not to kill, and acknowledging that you have killed in spite of your vows. This is where purification practice comes in, where you acknowledge, someone mentioned Vajrasattva practice, which is the most commonly used purification practice, where you acknowledge that you've broken your vows, and purify that negative karma, which means you regret it, you acknowledge your source of refuge, you do some sort of repair, could be reciting mantra or something, and then you say, I'm going to try not to do it again, okay? So vows, like I say, they're taken with the understanding that you will break them. But it said that, for example, if we take the vow not to kill, and we have an opportunity, we're presented with an opportunity to kill, like there's a cockroach scurrying across the kitchen floor, and we say, I could kill it, but I choose not to. Says you accumulate much, much more positive karma from that than if you had not taken the vow and didn't kill, okay? So when we're presented with opportunities to break our vows and we consciously choose not to, that creates an incredible amount of good karma. So that's one reason we want to take vows. Okay, and that makes a really strong positive imprint when the opportunity presents itself to us to lie, and we consciously choose, no, I am not going to lie because I've taken a vow and I've taken refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okay, that's really how we start to change our mind, okay, where we become a little bit less reactive or unthinking, where we start to say, whoa, I can choose not to do that. I can choose not to lie. I can choose not to kill. That's very powerful behavior, okay, which doesn't mean we keep the vows perfectly, but at least we're trying. Any other comments? Mr. Mike.
You said that, by contrast, driving to the center and annihilating 1,000, bugs in the front of my grill of the car.
Yeah.
There's no negative karma in that because there's no killing involved as far as the lack of intention, correct? It has to be intention.
No, there's still killing. Oh, there's still negative karma.
So if I'm walking and I happen to step on things that I don't even realize I've killed,
Yeah.
accumulating
Yeah.
negative karma through
Yeah,
that?
even if it doesn't have the intention, okay? This is, that's the rub of samsara, okay? We're in samsara so that even if we don't want to kill, we can't avoid it completely, okay? It's the karma is not as strong as intentionally killing, okay? But that kind of killing is basically done out of ignorance, okay? And that's the negative mind stream there, that mindless killing, okay, or not even being aware of it. It says just by the fact that we're in samsara, we can't avoid negative actions. Yeah, so that's one reason we want to get out of samsara, where we're not in this horrible, we want to avoid killing, but we're forced to kill. Yeah. Does that? Yeah. Okay. I mean, karma is much heavier when you say, I am going to kill my stockbroker because of that bad trade he made, and you go to his office and stalk him and intentionally kill him, okay? when you have the intention and you carry it out, that's referred to as a complete karmic action. If you don't have the intention, but you carry it out, that's an incomplete karmic action, but it still does have some karmic imprint. Okay? Sorry. So drive to the center, then walk around the stupa and say, purify all the beings I killed on my way here. Yeah.
And watch your step while you're circumambulating.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
We have one more question, Robbie,
Okay.
on Zoom. Does that concept of greater karma apply in the opposite direction? Like when you break vows, does that produce greater negative karma than if you hadn't taken vows?
That's a good, I would assume yes, but don't quote me on that one. Yeah. That's why purification is so important, though. If you've taken vows, you really should be purifying on a regular basis. I would think that would be true, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that particularly if you consciously say, I know I've taken the vow not to do this, but I really want to do it, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm really going to go ahead and sleep with my best friend's wife or whatever, even though I know that would be very heavy karma, yeah. Okay? Any other comments or questions? Okay, so let's do another meditation. Check your posture. Three deep breaths from the abdomen. Set your motivation. And place the concentration on the breath. We'll do just a couple minutes of concentration meditation to get our mind clearer and more focused. And now that our mind is settled and focused, we'll turn our awareness to the idea of vows. How do I react when I hear that word? It may have a negative connotation. It may seem restricting, as if I were being hemmed in. Or we may see the benefits, that it helps me move in the direction I want to go, to be the person I aspire to be. So just think for a moment about vows, how you react when you hear that word, and what does that mean? And let's just look at one of the lay precepts, say, making a commitment not to lie. How would my life be different if I kept that commitment? Would it be better? Would it be more problematic? Would I be happier? There's no right answer. Just think about it. If we really lived by that precept, how would things be different? How would my mind be different? And we can end our short little meditation with a dedication. May this energy not be dissipated or lost, but may it ripen for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, so we have one more session. Next week we'll talk about what happens next after we've taken refuge. How does that make our lives different? And the homework I really didn't come up with, didn't plan it out, but it's finish the readings and sit in meditation 6 days out of the week and think about the 5 lay precepts. how each, you may want to take one each day and think how that would make your life different if you really kept that commitment. And we'll see everyone next week, okay?
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next week, if not before. Yes, I don't think your microphone, oh, okay. Yeah, Robbie's saying, don't forget to come to the mandala.